Yo, people. I don't know who's gonna watch this. Oh boy. Hello. Um, I was debating whether or not even to start doing this. Like, this is pretty, hey, Benoit! uh, this is pretty, what do you call it? Um, I didn't want this to be like run of the mill kind of crap. Like, it's Tuesday. Let's do a Tuesday talk. Like something like that. So, like, I don't know. I don't know if this is gonna be a thing or what, but like, I just wanted to talk because I haven't really talked in a while. I kind of, especially this year, I've really kept to myself a lot. Um, so like for different reasons. And hey, mom. um, yeah, but like, I don't know. I think, especially nowadays, and with everything that's going on now, I think it's kind of inevitable that I have to start talking. Oh, I know it's kind of weird to say. Like, of course you got to start. Like, I mean, I guess it really won't make sense until I actually start. Yeah, I don't know. Mine, I mean, I don't really do much anyway. So, like, this is pretty random. Whoever watches, watches. I'm not trying to like make it a big thing or anything. Like whoever watches, watches, and whatever happens, happens. Oh, hey, Doug. um, but yeah, like things are pretty crazy. Um, as most of you probably know now, I did win a job. I love you too, Amber. Um, and I still haven't really processed it in my brain. Like it comes and goes. Um, and I thought it'd be interesting to even, um, well, thanks, man. Um, well, I thought it'd be very interesting to not necessarily document the process because, like, I know for me personally, um, when learning from different teachers and going to different schools, the details of what happens during the process of like negotiating contracts and what happens right after the audition. How long do you wait until they send, that kind of all the logistical things. So not I probably won't necessarily talk about those in detail until they actually have been settled and all that stuff because, logistics, legalities, all of that. Because I don't want to like, oh, thanks, Greg. Because I don't want to like preempt anything or just make it as completely blank and general as possible. But like at some point, um, when we do end up winning jobs, we'll have to ask people and get advice um, as far as like what to do. And so, me being who I am, I'm definitely gonna take stock and really go through the details of like what I had to do to do whatever as it progresses. Um, when that comes out, probably won't be for a while, as most of you probably know. But it is on my mind because I like helping people out and um, just making sure that I'm sharing whatever free information I get or my experience. Um, that within reason, of course. If I'm told something in confidence, I'm not gonna tell anybody because like you know, your word is your bond, as some people say. A Lannister always pays his debts, kind of thing. Um, thanks, mom. But it's also just being wise and like that kind of stuff because you know things get very not necessarily secret, but there's just a way to do that. And as this goes on, I'm definitely going to respect those boundaries and all that stuff. Um, that being said, eventually I am gonna probably meet a student or someone who is gonna ask me like what I had to go through to like get all the ball rolling and discuss contracts and like all that stuff. And so I want to make sure I actually pay it, not necessarily like I'm not paying attention, but I want to make sure that I'm paying attention while I go through this process, just so I have that information for people. Um, of course, in generals, again, in general terms, not going to specifics because specifics are contractually obligated and all that stuff. Um, yeah, don't know why I just started talking about contracts. Uh, yeah, so this is crazy. How many? Oh, there's 20 people. Hey. um, so yeah, we did it. And when I say we, I actually do mean we, because a lot of people, without getting too emotional, there was a lot of people involved, and as the months go on, I am going to personally thank and hopefully write a bunch of letters to people. There's like a ton, like not even just teachers, like all the friends, all the family, all the people, all the like the random people, like people in Hawaii, and not saying Hawaii's random, but like people in Africa, that's more random. There was somebody from like, oh man, what was that country? There was somebody from Africa. It was late at night. Okay, Amber. Um, it was super late. It was like 3 a.m. and somebody texted me on Facebook saying, "Love you from Africa." It was some part. It wasn't Zimbabwe. It was something else. Um, but like I don't know. I guess you never really understand or really grasp who you. Oh, could go to college. Oh yeah, yeah, Jeremy. Woo. Nice. Oh, dude. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You like that for example. I don't know if you guys can see the comments or anything, but like that for example, you never really know what your life is going to, or who. Okay, mom. Yeah, you never actually know who you're gonna affect in the long run. Um, so you got to be very careful about what you do and how you act and how you present yourself and like what actions you take when certain things happen. Um, I won't get into details, but like some auditions you lose, or like some auditions I lose, and they really hurt real bad. And then like, how do you go back from that? In a positive way, in a way that's um, not not necessarily like not like you're hiding what you're feeling, but you're also trying to it's a weird balance of maintaining a certain decorum but also being honest at the same time. It's a really hard balance because you also don't want to yeah. You also don't want to what do you call it, deny your feeling in an attempt to put a mask on and like just save face. Like at some point you have to really be truthful and honest, and the only way you can do that is if you have people to talk to, and people you can actually be honest with, because of course you can't just go to work and be like um yeah, you just have to, know the spaces you're in. That's a good way to put it. Know the spaces you're in and know when you can do all that stuff. Um, so like, yeah, this is extremely insane. I literally just took a stock of how many auditions I took. Um, so I separated them into, not that this is like the shoppy talk. Um, and the last Calgary was the 10th professional audition. Yay! All right, Aaron. Woo! Yeah, I'm gonna finish that. I'm still practicing. Like I'm still trying to get better. I want to be real. I want to be better than I am right now, and it's, Okay, back to the thing. Yeah, so Calgary was my 10th audition, professional, um, which looking at that, it felt because of the process I went through, it felt a lot longer. Um, like, man, and not including that doesn't include what do you call it? That doesn't include uh, hey Allison. That doesn't include school auditions, civic orchestra auditions, fellowship auditions. That doesn't include any of those. It's just strictly professional orchestra auditions. It only took 10 of those. Um, of those 10, I advanced in five, I think. The the fourth one I advanced in. So the first three I didn't. The fourth, and after that I didn't advance in one, two. Yeah, so I only advanced in five. The first three I didn't advance. The fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh one I advanced. The eighth and the ninth one I did not advance, and I was really going through some really tough stuff for those two. Um, and I was really worried because also I'll talk about that later. But yeah, the 10th one was the one, and yeah, so I was really scared with the eighth and ninth because I was like, oh man, I I'm not advancing. What's going on? Because at that point I had a streak going. I advanced in three. I forgot what I said, but I advanced consecutively, and then it just completely dropped. Like my preparation stayed the same, everything felt the same, but those two I just didn't advance, and so I was started questioning everything. Like, oh, what am I doing wrong? Maybe I should start recording myself. I'm doing this. I need like so. To be very honest, and I'm glad there's like 9 people watching, because if it was like all the people watching, it'd be really weird. But like honestly, for this audition, I really had no practice room except my parents' basement with a xylophone and a snare drum. I had some marimba access uh, at my teacher's house and at my teacher's practice room. I'm sorry, at my teacher's practice room. I did not play bass drum at all, which was the scary thing. Um, because because Rite of Spring was on there. That's really loud and a lot of articulation things. Mahler 3 was on there, which is all articulation and color and all that stuff, and I didn't touch any of it. And I was really nervous because the day before, I literally was like, is there anyone with a bass drum? Because, like, I just didn't get a chance to get there. Um, and that was no fault of anybody. I just didn't have a practice room, didn't have access to a facility um, in a good time span. So I literally was just mental practicing that. And at the same time, I had my thoracic outlet syndrome kick up again because at that point, that was the 11th um, thing I was doing as far as auditioning. Not professional audition, but I did grad school and fellowship and other things. So that was the 11th one that I was doing. So my left arm was completely shot. It was really hard to get things sounding good. Especially that day because the day of the audition was 4 rounds consecutive, and man, my left I barely could get Rite of Spring out, barely, just barely. Um, Man, favorite mental practice techniques. Okay, um, yeah, crap. Let's see. Okay. I'm just trying to make sure. Man, yeah. So, in all honesty, the amount of practice I put into this audition, I literally was just kind of going all by feel, just because I didn't have the time, and I felt really nervous because I didn't put as much time. Like I worked harder, not necessarily harder, but I worked a lot more hours for the Detroit audition, the National Symphony audition. I worked a lot of hours on because I had the whole summer. Um, so I was putting in like at least 6 hours a day for national, and at least 8 or 9 hours a day for Detroit. For Calgary, I put in two because I had to work. I had traveling between work, um, and I just had to take care of my body. And I couldn't do more than 2 hours without feeling like my hands were just going to fall off. And it was really scary because at that point you're like, well, you have to practice, but also you want to make sure you're taking care of yourself, but you also want to make sure you have like all the, you just have all these ifs, ands, or buts. Um, but at that point, it's like, well, it's out of my control, and I had to accept that. Um, and luckily, the list wasn't extremely bad in any way. It was just, it was a long list ish. It's a principal position, so you need to make sure it's all right and musical and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I just kind of went in and just saw what happened. Um, so that's enough of me ranting. Somebody had a question. I didn't know people were gonna ask questions. This is cool. Uh, Hold please. That's a good percentage. Yeah, it is. It's a pretty decent percentage. Half and half basically. Um, 50-50. I guess that's the whole point of auditions. They're kind of a 50-50 when you put the work in and all that stuff. Um, it's kind of a 50-50 thing. It's subjective. That's college from elementary and high school. It's pretty cool, man. Man, okay. Favorite mental practice techniques. Um, so honestly, it's kind of a skill. It kind of depends on how your brain works. The whole thing about mental practice is all imagination, um, and there's a sense of, I guess the standard way of doing it is you imagine yourself in like in the action of what you want to do. So I guess you could simply imagine yourself walking, maybe to start. Something simple like imagining yourself just standing in a room somewhere. And it might actually work if you're actually standing too. It's a little weird when you're sitting down and imagining yourself standing because depending on how intensely you think about it, your body will actually feel like it's standing while you're sitting down. So it's really weird. So maybe try to be in a certain position that you're imagining yourself in before you do it because it's really weird the first time. Um, but yeah, you just imagine yourself doing whatever you want. And I would start with very simple tasks. First standing, then maybe walking. And somebody just posted something. Fantasia 2000. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's just working your imagination and literally trying to make it feel like you're in that action. Because as you think about it, you're the same parts of the brain that work when you actually physically do it are working as you are imagining yourself do it. And the more you practice it, the more intense it gets, and the more streamlined it gets. So sometimes if I'm trying to learn a new technique, I imagine it first so I can kind of feel what it should feel like in the best case scenario. And then when I actually do it, I try to feel it before I do it. And that takes practice. Um, and some people, I mean, for some people it works right away. It's very accessible and easy to figure out. Other people it takes a long time. Other people it just doesn't work. It just depends on how you think. Um, so for me, I'm very imaginative. I love creativity. I love just daydreaming about things, and I kind of work that way. So I don't know. There's a lot of books on it too. Um, there's golf. Everybody talks about golf. Kali, you know something about that? Yeah, the pre-shot idea. Having a mental cue and then having a physical cue, or having both. Um, so you, so I had both actually. There's always a physical and a mental cue for me, which is just a stillness that I have. So I can access it anywhere. It doesn't have to be percussion related. I could be laying in bed trying to go to sleep and my brain's just kind of work like going on and on. And so I just access my stillness and then I can go to sleep easier. When I was real, that was I learned that when I was having a lot of trouble sleeping. Um, I think that was last year too. Well, at least it was really bad last year. It was really hard for me to go to sleep because I was just so anxious. So little did I know, my practice routine could work to help me go to sleep. So it was a very natural progression to figure that out. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Somebody else asked something. Oh, hey, how as an artist, how do you get out of the funk once you didn't? Yeah, the funk. Something a friend of well, not just a friend, but a lot of my teachers told me. Um, we live in a society. We live in a society. So our social structure is based off of grades, um, and that comparison. Like you get an A in math, you get a C in social studies. Like there's always a benchmark you're trying to reach to be graded. That can't be put into music because of all the variables. Everybody learns differently. People's processes are different, so that means the timing that it takes for them to learn things is different. Not everybody's going to have the same rates of growth as the other person. It's the same stuff people are talking about with education right now because people just don't learn the same and we're trying to standardize learning. So like it's weird um, because at some level we need something to it's a weird balance. I'm not going to start talking about education. Um, so to get out of the funk, I had to really let go of the concept and continually let go of the concept of reaching a set goal of something. And the audition for me was that set goal. So I had to literally cut that out of my idea and not make the audition the measuring stick. So my whole measuring stick was just how musical can I be? Was I extremely musical and was I able to do it accurately or appropriately? And that was my benchmark. If I hit all the right notes and wasn't musical, then I didn't achieve my goal. If I hit all the right notes and I was musical, okay, then I did my goal. Um, but other than that, I just tried to make sure that the benchmark stayed very general, not too specific, and didn't have a good or bad connotation to it. As soon as I started saying, "Oh, that was bad," then I started feeling bad about it. I think I wrote a blog about that, and I think I did one of my Black Swamp videos talks about it too, where I didn't want to start labeling things, um, because as soon as I labeled something, I either felt very bad about it because I didn't do well, or was like, okay, then I feel good now. Like I didn't want to start having those things, so I tried to stay super objective, and it's really hard to do that, especially if you're so used to not being objective and so used to putting labels on things. It's like learning a whole new language. You just it's and that was really hard. I'm gonna have to do a whole blog about that, because that's a whole different conversation. um, but actually, there's a guy, John Hagstrom, just posted from Chicago Symphony. He just posted a blog about um, going from student to professional. And this blog actually talks about motivation and how to self motivate yourself. Self motivate. um, which is a really huge key. That's also a habit that needs to be learned. And that's a whole other conversation. It's a good couple paragraphs too, but you can expand on that a lot because that deals with a lot of mentality things, how you view yourself, how people view you, how you think people view you. Like that's a lot of stuff. So yeah, okay. I hope that helps somebody. Who's asked somebody else? Let's see. Carrie. Okay. I hope Carrie's still here. I just was on a rant. Um, thoracic outlet syndrome. So, um, ooh, ribs. Oh gosh. So my thoracic outlet. So the standard thoracic outlet syndrome is where the muscles in the neck cave in on the nerves that are connected to your arm. So normally you'll feel, well, at least for me, normally I feel tingling and loss of feeling in my left arm. Not so much my right because my right's my right. It's my dominant hand. And my left arm usually has to work twice as hard to get the same amount of efficiency as my right, or twice as less, whatever, that makes sense. Um, so my physical therapist that I went to, is kind of weird if you can see. There's a couple exercises you can do. Also, I highly recommend massages. I went to Massage Envy. There's a stretch one, and then there's a regular massage. They're both hour long. I highly recommend it. They just kind of move the muscles back to where they belong. Because as you go through your daily routines, muscles tend to, and as you get older, muscles tend to just stay in a position where they've been for hours and hours. So if you're like, we're all hunched over on our phones, so the muscles just kind of like stay there. So we're just kind of like this all the time, So you have to be conscious of that. So I highly recommend massages. Uh, Before you do anything in the day, stretch. Anything. Like you get up in the morning, you stretch. like, so there's a lot of stretch exercises that um, just look up any reputable source. Massage Envy had a stretch program, so they showed me a bunch of healthy stretches that you could do. Um, when my thoracic outlet syndrome got really bad, there was this stretch where I would lean my neck over this way with my arm completely straight like this, and then my hand here, and then I would go back and forth like that, stretch my arm out that way, and move my neck this way, and just do that. This moves the nerve that is being trapped in your neck muscles. So if it gets really bad, like it was with mine a couple years ago, um, it will, you'll feel the muscle, you'll feel the nerve going through the muscle, and it feels really weird. But that just pushes the muscle off of the nerve, or pushes the nerve off of the muscle. So that's if it gets really bad. If you start really losing feeling, if you start feeling that, go to a therapist. They'll probably tell you to do that stretch and maybe a couple others. The other thing I really was into was Feldenkrais technique and Alexander technique, talking about efficiency and motion and all that stuff. So if you feel anything weird, you'll notice it immediately because you're always aware of how your body's working. So Feldenkrais technique, Alexander technique, massages, stretching every day. I stretch after I wake up and before I go to bed every single day now, just because my body needs it. And then Epsom salt baths, highly recommend. I do it every week, once every week, because again, I want to take care of my body. I do Epsom salt. This is something football players do. Epsom salt, sea salt, essential oil, and baking soda in a fairly hot bath, and just soak for a half hour. It removes all the toxins and stuff like that. There's some bath bombs you can get that have muscle relaxing salts, supposedly. I've used them, they work for me. So you can get those at Whole Foods, or where I'm going, there's a place called Essence. I wonder if Lush has a couple. Lush probably has a couple. I like Lush's stuff. Sea salt scrubs. Yeah, okay. Hope that helped too. Who asked a question? Hey, it's Rob Knopper. Hey, Rob. Ira, Gloria, and hey, John. Trish, hey, Trish. Manny, student for severe performance. Okay, here we go. Manny, I hope you're still watching. High level, but doesn't show up during performance. Oh, man. Yeah. Okay, so anxiety is a huge deal. And man, I would highly recommend watching some acting. There's this guy, Anthony Mindel. I wonder if I can even write this. I'll probably post something on my Facebook. And there's a lot of stuff of his on my website too. Uh, Anthony Mindel. There's a lot of videos of him talking about anxiety and showing up in the performance. Um, eh, Man, I guess. Well, with the student, I hope Mandy's still watching. Uh, Plays at a high level through recordings, live performances. Yeah. So the our perception. Okay. So anxiety is based off of. Oh, hey. Okay, great. Okay, so the anxiety. I'm not a professional. I'm just talking in my own experience and what I've learned through teachers and books and things like that. Um, Anxiety is really it's really based on how we perceive the situation, and if we perceive danger in a not necessarily like physical danger, but like any sort of danger, the anxiety starts kicking in, adrenaline kicks in, and it's all based on how we perceive a situation. So knowing which situations we get nervous in. So in that case, just it's only in peer performances when there's people I know, or people I respect, or people I have a certain affiliation with, where I have some rapport that I want to maintain, like that kind of stuff. Um, so knowing those situations that get you nervous and trying to change the viewpoint of how we view it. So it's really hard to. It's not hard. I mean, it is hard to do that because obviously we want to do well. We want to maintain, and especially in this society, there's a lot of images that we want to maintain. So, like for me personally, like I have fast hands, and uh, whenever people wanted me to play Flight of the Bumblebee, it was always expected of me to play it obnoxiously fast. So every time I played it, I would immediately get nervous. I start shaking because I knew that perception was on me, and I perceived that people were expecting something. Um, as I started advancing in auditions, people were like, "Oh, you're taking this audition. I can't wait to see you advance." Like, and that so you start perceiving these expectations. So you have to take the time, and I don't know how old the student is. Um, and I feel like it's harder at different ages, especially it's hard at teenage age because high school is crazy. You have so many images you're trying to keep up with all the people, like all the students, because students are crazy. So you have all these images you're trying to maintain. So it's hard because you have to let go of those perceptions and renegotiate how you're taking them and how you're viewing them. The less stock you put into those, the less the anxiety grows. And the quicker you can, and the more you're able to attack those thoughts in your brain before they start like accelerating and getting you more stressed and more anxious and creating more of the adrenaline, the faster, it's more just about controlling the perception and how it affects your body. And that takes time. There's a lot of books on it. Um, Luckily for the students, they know that peer performances make them nervous. So, you know, what are they thinking about during the performance? Are they thinking, oh, so and so's watching? I need to make sure I play perfect because they'll talk about that. Or my teacher's watching. I need to make sure I'm playing in time because they always question my time. Like, you need to start thinking about those thoughts and just letting them go. And that's more of a mental side. And there's no easy way. There's really no easy fix. It depends on the person. It depends on the situation. You really have to take the time and really be patient because you might not figure out what the appropriate response is. Maybe one day it's a peer performance that makes you nervous, and then the next day it's playing for your cat, and you're like, I'm really nervous playing for my cat right now. And like, why am I nervous playing for my cat? Like, so it's weird. So you really have to be conscious of what you're thinking, and the thought process is the big. Your mind is the biggest part. It's so underrated sometimes because we're so focused on the doing and the accuracy of what we do, and not really thinking about how we think and how we perceive things and how we're taking things in or letting things out. Um, Man, it's crazy. So yeah, just being aware of how we think and really being patient about learning and being okay with learning how we're thinking and like that process. There's a lot of books on that. Um, yeah. There's a bunch of, I think I put a bunch of books on my website. It's on recommended reading under that tab. Yeah, that's a whole. Mm. Thanks. I hope that helped. That was just kind of I wish I had more specific things, but I guess the most specific thing is really learn to be objective and not subjective. Really let go. It's not personal. Nothing's personal. Just be okay with presenting your. And that's the other thing. You got to be okay with presenting your true self. And that's a whole another conversation too. I don't know how old the student is. They're probably a teenager. Like they don't really have to. Don't get into that yet because they're still trying to learn who they are. As you're an adult, you start getting into the whole. I am this person. I've developed this persona and this, and I am accomplishing this role. And getting out of that is harder than I think. I think it's equally hard because high school you're trying to learn who you are and you have all these like systems that you could join in, but you're like that's not really what I want, but that's the socially acceptable thing. Like, that's all that kind of crazy stuff. And then you're an adult, you've already established a persona, and this is kind of what Anthony Mindo talks about in acting. You've established a persona. Is that actually who you are though? Like, have you thought about, is that persona who you are inside? Like, this is crazy. Okay. Um, Next question. Oh God. What is your routine after before the big? Okay. Whoa. So the routine. I think one of the interesting things about my whole audition routine is that I tried to make it, and I even talked about this when I was a kid, which is also very crazy. Um, I wanted to make practicing literally a part of my life. I didn't want there to be separation between me as a person and me as a musician. I wanted it just to be one and the same. There's pros and cons to that. And all the cons I kind of got bombarded with when I didn't get the Detroit job. But that's another conversation. It might come into this. Um, so the routines that I developed as a daily thing, like stretching, getting 8 hours of sleep. Really, there was no difference between how I prepared for auditions and how I just spent my normal day. I would spend my normal day practicing and warming up. Whatever I did within the day, if I wanted to practice specific excerpts or stuff, that was all flexible. But things that didn't change: amount of sleep I got, what I ate. I changed my diet as just a natural thing. I wanted to lose weight and get more energy and just be more healthy for health reasons. Um, and, so I made sure, how much sugar did I have? Did I have a lot of caffeine? Do I drink pop? Like, I changed my entire diet just as a natural thing, not specifically for an audition, although I did do that for the Detroit audition. But yeah, my routine before an audition just is basically what I do every day. I stretch, I make sure I have enough sleep, I eat breakfast. Some days I don't eat breakfast, just depends on how I feel. Um, I highly recommend eating breakfast because that's the healthy thing to do. But yeah, so, and then I just, whatever I'm supposed to do that day, I just go do. Um, and at that point, I guess I was so used to taking auditions that, um, and I took enough auditions, not necessarily professional ones, but I took enough auditions that I could kind of get into a groove of, like, there's some auditions where I took a night bus, got in, like for the Pittsburgh Fellowship, literally, I took a Greyhound, the late night Greyhound from Chicago to Pittsburgh. So I left Chicago at 11 p.m., got into Pittsburgh at 4:30 a.m., took a nap at the Greyhound until 5 o'clock-ish a.m., walked really slow down the street to the bagel place that opened at 6. So I basically like stopped at some places. Stayed at the bagel store from 6 to 7 eating a bagel and having some tea. Went to another store that opened at 7, Aubon Pain, and at that point the sun came up. And so I had a muffin at Aubon Pain at 7:05, and then there was a bench outside Aubon Pain, so I practiced from 7:45 until 8 when the hall opened. Went to the hall, went in, they were like, "You're really early." I'm like, "Yeah, I just got off the bus. Is there anywhere I can just, hang out?" So I hung out in the green room from 8 to 9, and then the audition started at 10. My audition wasn't until noon, so I was just sitting in the green room for an hour and a half until my room opened, took the audition at noon, and then I got past the audition process. So then 1 o'clock was the interview round, so I had to wait afternoon. My interview was at 1:45. They deliberated. Actually, no, it wasn't even 1:45. It was 3:45. My interview round was 3:45, and then I found out at 4. So 12-hour day, completely not in my routine at all. And basically I was just like, well, that's fine. Some people kind of crumble when their routine crumbles. And I guess some things I tried to, like for instance, the stillness thing. If ever I was starting getting anxious about, oh man, I didn't have enough sleep, I didn't have enough warm-up time, I'm tired, like, I just went back to my stillness thing. If, if I was feeling crappy, I would start warming up. If my body felt weird, I'd stretch. I just tried to latch on to the little bit of control I had. And I guess a good rule of thumb is take control of what you can and let go of what you can't. Because as soon as you start trying to take control of what you can't, you start hitting walls. Somebody said, actually, I was watching CNN one day, and somebody was like, just because you can ride the waves doesn't mean you can control the current. And that's like really corny, but like it's totally true. You can ride the waves, but you can't control how it takes you. You can kind of like gauge and, sail it the best you can, but, at the end of the day, it's going to take you where it takes you no matter how much you know how to actually work the boat. Um, yeah. Okay. So that's my routine. I stretch, I warm up. I try to get enough sleep. I eat when I need to. Um, yeah. Any other questions? Oh gosh. Oh man. Yeah, so this audition was crazy. It was yeah, because I did not feel as prepared as I did taking the National Symphony or the Detroit one. I practiced super long hours for the Detroit one. Um, and I wrote a blog about it too, where I was doing literally, I kid you not, and I do mean this, I was doing 18-hour days. I'm not joking. I did 8 hours of physical practice. And I wrote this in the blog too. I do not recommend doing this. I don't. Like, especially for 3 months. Please do not practice 18 hours a day. Um, so I would not even 8. I did 10 hours of not nonstop, but just 10 hours of physical practice. Where the other 8 hours go, that was all mental practice. That 48 hours. Thanks, Matt. 48. Um, yeah, so I did 10 hours of physical practice. Um, and the rest was either mental practice, doing weird things with like things I could do without playing an instrument, like Feldenkrais exercises that were geared specifically towards the excerpts. I would be doing weird, like, I literally did not leave the practice room. My brain did not leave the practice room. And by the time I actually went to bed, I was still running through excerpts. And like it would take me so long to get to sleep because I would still be running like like I would just be running through like da 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 dee da dee da da da, like it was bad, to the point where like I didn't even talk to people, I didn't go places, I would just be home. I was literally a practice hermit. Um, and I lost my. It's kind of what if you guys watch Jim Carrey, it's similar to what Jim Carrey went through with his when he did, I forgot what movie it was, but he was enacting a character and he literally lost himself in the character, similar to Heath Ledger too. Um, Man, it was really really bad. um, and all that work, like, you do all of that and you're like, there's no way I'm not winning this audition. And I didn't. And it was really, it was like, it was really hard. Because you do all that, like, hard work pays off, right? You know? Not all, I mean, hard work does pay off, but it doesn't always pay off when you want it to pay off. Like, and that's life. Like, things happen in its own season. You can't control when the thing grows. You can water it and all that stuff. Adding more water won't make it grow faster. It's going to have to, you just have to do what you're supposed to and wait until it happens. So yeah, I don't know whose question that was for, but oh man, I forgot what that was. Who? Yeah, okay. What's the most important step in learning new excerpts? Um, so I guess the lucky thing, I guess I was really lucky because I started excerpts really early. Um, so I was learning, actually the good thing about me, um, good thing about me, the good thing about the way I learned excerpts was I've experienced excerpts pre-audition awareness and post audition awareness. So the first time I learned excerpts, I didn't even know what they were for. I learned Porgy and Bess because my teacher was like, "Hey, learn this music." And I was like, "Okay, I'll learn this music." And I was able to learn it without any attachment at all. And I think one of the biggest things about excerpts is to always remember that it's actually music. Like, get rid of the attachment of the audition. Get rid of that attachment because that puts stress on it, that puts all these subjective things on it, and you start leaving the musicality of beside, you know. So just always remember, the excerpt is music, um, and like all music is music. So that's the first thing. Second thing, like I'm not necessarily numbering things. I'm just kind of talking. Um, the excerpts are music. Um, take your time. Like there's no rush. And that's the other thing. We live in a microwave. I'm talking about society. All these topics. We live in a microwave society where we want instant gratification. Like I do this, so 2 plus 2 is 4, and like I shouldn't have to wait for equals to get to I shouldn't have to wait. Like the whole thing about process and progress is that it takes time, and so like who knows how long Porgy and Bess is going to take for you to get it right. And it doesn't matter. It does not matter how long it takes. What matters is the result. If it takes you 3 months to get Porgy and Bess completely accurate and comfortable, then it takes you 3 months. Like, that's fine. And as you start learning yourself and learning the excerpts better, it takes you less and less time. There are some excerpts, specifically bass drum. It takes me a long time to learn. Let's see. And it changes. Sometimes it changes with excerpts. Like on Freedom's Ground. Some people, I don't know if any drummers are on here, but there's a snare drum excerpt. It's really soft. It's really fast, and it's really articulate, and it's really hard. That excerpt takes me a month to get ready, almost every time. Almost every time. It only recently started taking me 3 weeks, like 2 or 3 weeks to get that one up to standard every time. And there are some excerpts that takes me longer. Bach, it takes me at least a month to get it to where I'm comfortable, especially if I'm learning a new one. It takes time, and be okay with it taking time. That's learning, not just excerpts, that's learning any piece. Some excerpts and pieces won't resonate with you real quick. Like, I don't know, what's a piece? Merlin. My teacher's been trying to get me to play Merlin for years, and it just doesn't jive with me. Like, it takes me so long to get through the first measure. Like, it just, so things take time. So that's 2 things. Excerpts. Again, it's music, so listen to all the pieces you can, or all the recordings you can. Get that sound in your head and really let it sink in emotionally. Not just oh, I'm with the flutes here, or I'm like blah blah blah, or I'm with the score says this, so I should be this way. Like, make sure you can feel what the emotion is that the piece is trying to portray. Certain people work differently. I'm more of an emotional guy, so I like really feeling what I'm trying to portray to the audience, and that influences how I practice and how I play, and then I analyze. Other people are more analytical English. So they start with that, and then they insert how they feel after that. So other people are strictly analytical, so they just do that, and that works. Other people are strictly emotional, they don't analyze at all, and that works. So it just depends on how you do with that learning process. Yeah. So be patient. Learning excerpts. Don't run before you can walk. Like, really pay attention to the techniques that are needed for each excerpt. And don't be afraid to do something weird, technically or musically. If you hear 3 recordings do something that you don't hear people practicing in the practice room, go with your gut. There was one, oh man, I think this was at National too. There was an excerpt that I had never heard of. It was a violin concerto, and I literally 5 minutes before I walked on stage, I heard people practicing it a different way than I had practiced, and it was a very blatantly obvious thing. None of the recordings I listened to had this instance, and so literally 5 minutes before, I changed the entire thing. I changed what I was going to do and did exactly what the other people did, and I advanced. Like, having that flexibility with the excerpts is really important. And you can only do that if you feel comfortable with it, if it's in your, if it's in you, if it's able to be manipulated within your playing and musicality and technique. Like, do it different ways, do it crazy, insane ways, do it too fast, too slow, too loud, too soft, extreme dynamics. Like, having that flexibility is super important. And actually, that's one of the reasons I was given from one of the judges on the panel, just the drastic amount of difference I could make. Again, my teachers were like, "You're gonna do a piano? Do a piano." Doug, man, my first lesson doing Kiji, man, my first lesson doing Kiji with Doug Waddell was probably the weirdest and hardest thing I ever did. He was like, I played it I guess I didn't know you don't know what soft is when you're that young, so you just play it what you think soft is, which is like mezzo forte or something. And so he's like, no, it's not soft enough. And note, this room that we were in was pretty small-ish, and he was standing like not even 5 feet away from me. So mezzo forte, 5 feet away, sounds pretty loud. And mezzo piano still sounds pretty loud. So in order to get pianissimo sound while he's 5 feet away, like, I barely have to touch the drum. And that was when I was 14, 15. Like, you think I knew what piano was? So, yeah, learning how to do that early on, especially in college, you got to make these dynamic contrasts, these phrases extremely blatant. And after doing that, you start making it sound organic and musical. And you can only do that by listening to music and playing music and just exposing yourself to so many different types of phrasing, so many different types of musicality. Listen to violinists, listen to vocalists, listen to everybody. Look at dancers, how they, like, I love watching dancers dance and the subtleties they are able to do and the accents they're able to do with their bodies and motions. Like, just, and also listen to acting and watching actors and listening to how people speak, like the expression, just listening and learning how to express in not a machine calculated, I'm going to do this amount of crescendo and then make this plateau and then do this amount of crescendo and then I will be arriving at forte at this, you make sure it's organic and sounds, like music, not like a robot doing the patterns that are marked in the score, and then also I will do these phrases because these are the natural phrases that occur in the piece, like, because people can hear that. I know it's weird, but people can hear that. So, okay. Another rant. I'm sorry. Oh, man. Any other questions? I like stating my actions. My actions are blissfully free from attachment. Yeah. Sean just wrote, I don't know if people can see the comments. Someone, one of my friends now in Calgary, Sean Buckley, she states, my actions are blissfully free from attachment to outcome. That's exactly, in a very concise statement, exactly what I try to do. Just let go of the outcome and do my work. I know what I'm supposed to do. I just do that. And I enjoy that. The result is the result. and letting go of the result, just makes it a little more easier to go to work every day. If you know that I'm here to practice, to get better, and have fun, boom. When the audition comes up, if people like what you did, boom. Keith Aleo, I'll never forget. I love Keith. When he told me when he won his first job, literally he just went to the audition and was like, okay, I'm just gonna play the way I play. So he played exactly what he did, and he advanced first time. And he's like, oh, okay, they liked it, all right. Did the same thing the second round. He was like, okay, I'm just gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna play what I play. I just do what I do. Advanced that time. He's like, okay, all right. Third round, final round, do the same thing. I'm gonna do exactly what I do. Don't care what anybody thinks. I'm just gonna do what I do. He wins, and he's like, okay, like you just have to, okay. Yes, people can see him. Great. How do you keep yourself from being psyched out by your competition at the audition? Yes. Okay. Again, the perception of how you perceive the situation. It takes practice. Your brain. So it also depends on how you grew up and your upbringing and your experiences. How you perceive situations affect how you react. So the thing about getting psyched out with people there, case in point, National Symphony, Eric Shin. Eric Shin was there in my round, my first round. And for those of you who aren't percussionists, Eric Shin, the story behind this guy, he's amazing percussionist, absolutely insane. I would say top 10, top 5, maybe even top 3. Like, and okay. But like, he's crazy. So this specific job, the National Symphony job, he's won it. It's happened 3 times now. And I was at the 3rd time. Eric Shin won the first one. The second one was a no-hire, but Eric Shin was the last person standing. He was in the finals, and it was a no-hire. So Eric Shin won that one. Eric Shin won that one. Third one, Eric Shin in the first round, and I'm like, oh man, Eric Shin's here. So easily you can get psyched out by that. So what I did and what I practiced throughout auditioning was to train myself not to care who was there. It doesn't matter who's there because they don't control how you play. You are in complete control of how you play. No matter what happens, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what, you have the control to control what you do. And so really tuning out people around you, because some people play mind games. They'll try to be like, hey man, what's up? They'll try to, like, not necessarily mind games, but they'll try to like talk to you and, just converse before the audition happens because maybe they have a little extra time on their hands. Some people do it because they want to get you out of the zone, like, so that you got to be careful of that. I think Tom Freer, teacher at Cleveland State, suggested, and maybe even Jim Baber, I might have heard this from a Jim Baber student too, from, I want to say LA. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. They wear headphones. They go into the audition, literally wear headphones that are canceling out noise, and don't talk to anybody. They just sit in a corner, find a quiet corner, and just remove themselves from the situation. If that works, do that. You just want to make sure you find a way to remove that sensation of people, like, either trying to get into your head, people's sounds. There's some people, if they hear people playing, that makes them nervous because they might hear them do something different or might hear them do something better than them. Like, you have to just tune that out. And that takes practice, that takes time, that takes patience. All of this takes time. There are books about that too. I think Inner Game of Tennis talks about it a little bit, where they see people practicing their shot and they look better than what your shot looks like. You just have to really be patient about that and really retrain your thinking to not compare yourself. That's another thing. You have to stop comparing yourself to other people. Like, all you have to compare yourself to is yourself the day before, 5 minutes before. Are you better than 5 minutes ago? And it really doesn't matter what they sound like outside the audition anyway. As soon as they walk on stage, something might happen. They might not sound as good as they do right now. Like, there's too many variables. So you have to train yourself not to start running through those thoughts while people are playing next to you. So back to National, what I did, just to prove myself a point, my round, people, there was two halves of a room. There was a wall, one half of a room. You could walk around the wall and get to the other half. There were some benches. All of the people in my round were over here. Eric Shin was right there. So what I did, I walked myself over to Eric Shin's spot and just set myself up right there and practiced right in front of him. And I wasn't trying to psych him out. I was proving to myself, literally, it doesn't matter who's here. I love Eric Shin. I have so much respect for Eric Shin. But in my mind, I was as good, if not better. And, like, not necessarily, you don't have to think of yourself like that. Like, you don't want to start making, some people, you don't want to start making it into a competition. But I just wanted to make sure that I knew it doesn't matter who's here. We're all just doing the same thing. We're all trying to make music. We're all trying to present a musical idea that somebody likes, and hopefully it's good for the orchestra. And it does not matter who's there. If I take another audition, let's say, well, this won't happen. Cleveland Principal Orchestra happens, because that won't happen. Mark's going to be there for years. Cleveland opens up. I'm going to go. It doesn't matter that I'm there. Some people might get nervous because I'm there. It's unfortunate, but literally, it does not matter who's there. Everybody's going to have a day. It might be a good day. It might be a bad day. Whatever. Like, you just have to go in, know what you do, and be proud of what you do, and just stick with that. And it takes time to have that mental stability to do that. And you have to take your time, have other ways of dealing with it if you need to step away for a second, if you need a trigger of some sort. Some people have the fiddle thing to stay focused. You want to just practice. You have to find your own method to get away from that thought process. Okay, enough of that. Woo! Okay, how do you handle unexpected hiccups during an audition? Okay, this is the other thing. So, again, mental perception. It's literally everything's all mental perception. If you view mistakes as negative, automatically you start having a negative response. So, like, if you are able to get through, so you make a mistake, if you notice that mistake and you start running with that and you're like, I made this mistake! No! Like, obviously the rest of the piece is gone because you're just focusing on this while the moment's still going on. So you have to train yourself not to hold on to that one hiccup and just, let it go by the wayside. And that, again, takes time because obviously the audition has stakes to it, and those added stakes add pressure and stress. So that one mistake now feels like a huge, big thing because of the stakes that are in it. So that's another mental stability thing that you have to practice. Literally, you have to go in knowing this probably isn't going to go exactly the way I think about it. So why expect anything? That's a weird concept, I know. Go in, don't expect anything. Just go in and play. If a mistake happens, you weren't expecting anything anyway. So that's a weird it's a weird concept. I know it's a weird concept, but that's one thing that I started doing where it made it easier for me to accept the fact that I made a mistake. That's fine, whatever. I made a mistake. You can't fix it. You can't go back in time and like, oh, let me do that one thing I forgot to do. Like, no. You have to accept it and move on. Um, it's kind of just acceptance and being okay with the the unknown. Like, you don't know if it's going to go perfect. You don't know if you're going to make a mistake. But you shouldn't worry about it, because once you start worrying about it, that just adds more stress. And like, you can't prepare for what you don't know is going to happen. Like, you can only prepare for the actions that you're knowing you can do. You don't know what the height is on the instrument. You don't know what the air is going to feel like. You don't know what the sound is going to do. Like, you just have to do what you do. Um, on a side, another side of the coin is being able to um, instantly react to things. So I took a lot of these ideas from Bruce Lee, where his whole thing is basically trying to develop a technique where everything's reactionary. So any stimulus he receives, he's able to instantly react because he's used to just moving as he needs to. So he's not planning anything necessarily, but just kind of reacting to what he gets. So yeah, if I notice, like, what it got to a point where I would walk on stage and I could literally hear how air was circulating in the room. So I immediately knew how I had to play. Again, that's a weird thing, but as you do things and as you start noticing things, like if you notice with certain xylophones that Porgy and Bess, you need to do one thing, like you start reacting it instantly. If you notice the bars are wider than they said on the instrument list, if you can see that and you're able to just adjust, like you just allow yourself to adjust, things like that, being extremely adaptive and accepting that things can change and being okay with things changing. Like, that also allows you to be less volatile when you make a mistake, or if instruments aren't exactly what they said they were, or if the room's too dry and you have to do all this crazy stuff with your hands to make it sound more ringy, or if it's too wet and you have to play super articulate. You just want to be very fluid and be okay with all of the unexpected things that happen. And that takes, again, it takes mental changing the mentality and being okay with things not going exactly the way you planned them, and being okay with changing on the fly. And that can come with some people. It's more analytical, so they practice all these crazy things and all these variations. Like, let me do this just in case. Hopefully they do enough variations to when they actually get to the thing and it's about the same, they're able to react. Other people, they just do a bunch of crazy stuff. Actually, case in point, there's a bunch of studies. I know some people have seen these studies on the internet where they take two groups to do free throws, and one group, they do all sorts of crazy stuff. They do free throws from the back, they do not just free throws, but different other types of throws, and they do all these crazy things. And then the other group, they just do free throws. And the group that does all the crazy stuff has a higher percentage rate because they have so much experience with other aspects of the ball and other aspects of the space. So having those variations really helps too. All right, another rant. Oh man. Funny. I probably posted this on Audition Hacker. Funny story with unexpected slips. My very first audition, I forgot my triangle clip in the warm-up room. Oh, you're welcome. Who was that? Oh, it's Jeremy. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, very first audition, talking about unexpected things happening. Very first audition was Chicago Symphony substitute audition, I think. It was either Civic or No, it was Chicago Symphony substitute. I was 14. Why? Patsy told me to do it because I was doing some excerpts. I think I was getting ready for Interlochen that year. I was getting ready for Interlochen that year, so I think I might have turned 15 by that time. So I left my triangle clip in the basement. Didn't know there was going to be triangle because they didn't give us a list. So went upstairs and I did the round. It was pretty okay. It was eh. Kiji wasn't great because I was shaking a firestorm. Um, so I didn't play very well. I was 14. So I got to triangle was the last thing. Got to triangle. Not even. I noticed that there was triangle when I started playing xylophone, and so I'm stuck at the xylophone. I'm like, how am I gonna play triangle? I don't have a triangle clip. What am I gonna do? So I finally get to the triangle, and I'm like, well, I need something to hold the triangle up. What is around that I can hold the triangle up with? So I take off my shoe, take the shoelace out, hang the triangle up by the shoelace, and play Liszt's piano, whatever, Rachmaninoff or whatever it is. And I play with with the shoelace. That was my first audition. So talk about being able to adapt. Some things you just don't know. Like you're gonna forget something downstairs. You're gonna forget the stick you usually use for whatever. So you better be able to play with another stick. Like this Calgary audition, I play Sorcerer's Apprentice with a specific type of stick, and done it for years, and no one's ever asked me to do anything different. This time, they asked for a super bright sound for the first half, and I was like, okay, I'll do that. And I had three choices. I had two choices that were similar to the same stick I had as far as feel, but the color was brighter. And then I had one that was obviously brighter. It was super bright, but it was on a completely different stick that I don't necessarily like playing because the rebound's weird. It feels weird. I have to play weird to get it to sound right. And so what I did, um, I did. Oh, Dad said it was interlocking. It was. There was another one right before that. Don't tell Cynthia, because she was on the panel. Man, that scared me. Um, yeah, yeah. So I highly recommend just be super um, adaptive. Just do all sorts of crazy stuff. If one of these days I'm gonna write down everything I did to practice. I'm gonna write down everything. My girlfriend Sarah, she does literally some crazy stuff. And what we usually end up finding is that somebody's done it. Even the craziest thing we've done, somebody has done it. Ira Gold, not principal, he plays with National Symphony, I believe. Bassist, incredible bassist, but like his process is extremely. He has so much variety in the way he practices, and it comes out in his ability to just change on a dime because he's so used to adapting. Um, Mark Demalak is my old teacher. As far as physical movement and being able to react physically and efficiently, like completely changed my whole view of how I practice. Um, yeah, so I would say being mentally uh, capable of adapting and being physically capable of adapting really changes a lot of things, especially when you're taking auditions, especially when you're learning new pieces or new techniques. I'm constantly changing my technique, especially in my left hand, because I'm always finding something that works better. Um, yeah. All right. Do I go by hours when practicing? So it changes. When I first, hey Mark, I highly recommend start. So I'll start with this. When I first started taking lessons, I was instructed to do 45 minutes a day. And this is good, and I think I wrote a blog about this too. This is good because it teaches you discipline in setting aside time to practice. Um, so as you start, because when I started, all I needed to do was practice a practice pad, and that takes 45 minutes. So I had to practice stick control, a solo, and a rudiment. And those three things, 15 minutes a day, 45 minutes. And obviously, as you get older, you have more things to practice, more details to iron out, and that takes time. And what I started to do later on was notice that not necessarily that I didn't need to calculate how many hours I did, but I needed to really calculate what I needed to do. And if what those things I had to do added up to a certain amount of hours, then it just added up to that amount of hours. But I highly recommend setting aside time. And I wrote a blog about this too. If you do 50 minutes of practice, take 10 minutes of rest time because your brain and your body need to rest. And that's an hour. I wouldn't recommend making the practice an hour and then making the rest time not a part of the practice session, but making the rest time a part of the practice session. So an hour is 50 minutes of playing and 10 minutes of rest at least, or 45 minutes and 15 minutes. Just make sure you add rest time. When I was at DePaul, I did the first 2 years I did 4 hours a day because my old teacher, Doug Waddell, told me to do that. So I did 4 hours a day. I think it was an hour and a half of snare drum. It was some sort of combination. When I really started taking lessons with Mark, it was 6 to 7 hours a day because of all the details that I needed to learn, all the different aspects of efficiency and motion that I had to retrain my body in. There was a lot of updates that I had to start doing, and that took me a lot of time. So I started doing 6, 7 hours junior year. Actually sophomore year I started doing that because I took a couple lessons with Mark freshman year. So sophomore year I started doing 6 hours, and that was the year I got into National Repertory Orchestra because of some things he taught me how to do that really helped my anxiety and helped my presentation in auditions. And as time went on, I started getting more obsessive about it and allotting more time. So that's where I started getting to 8 to 10 hours, and then we kind of talked about the whole 18-hour days for 3 months. Don't do that. I recommend 4 to 6 hours a day. As you start feeling more comfortable with your technique and as it settles in more, where you start noticing things don't take you as long to learn things, Christopher Lamb says, and I highly agree, 2 hours, 2 weeks, you're ready for the audition. At a certain point, you reach that level where it takes you 2 hours a day for 2 weeks to get all the excerpts ready, unless you're learning a new excerpt or a new standard piece or anything like that. At a certain point, your technique will get so good that 2 hours a day for 2 weeks, you're immediately ready for an audition. And that takes time. It takes those 6 hours a day for a year, 8 hours a day for a year, whatever it takes. It'll just adapt. And your body, your mind, your preparation will just kind of solidify at a certain point. So nowadays, for the Calgary audition, I did 2 hours a day. Not necessarily because that's what happened, but just to make sure I was taking care of myself, taking care of my body, making sure I didn't overwork or overthink anything. So it depends, and it changes as you grow. So I would recommend setting aside a time that's comfortable and healthy for your brain power, as far as how long you can stay focused, how long you can keep that energy up in your body, and based on those variables, set aside that amount of time. If you can only do 2 hours because you're too tired, it goes for string players, brass players, chops, that kind of thing. If you can only do 2 hours because of mental and physical constrictions, then be okay with that. You can spend a time an hour doing mental practice or score study or listening. There are other things you can do away from the instrument. Jojo Mayer says, away from the instrument, there's a lot of things you can learn. And I highly agree. So, okay, rant over. Do you document your progress? Yes and no. um, I highly recommend documenting progress because some things, and I noticed this in two ways in my life. You don't notice your progress as much because you're always present with yourself. So you see yourself go through all the minuscule changes to the point where you don't see big, plateaus. And you only notice those big plateaus if you have a record of like a month before. How did you play a month before? So if you want, I suggest this to a lot of people, if you want, do a, let's see, do a video or a recording of yourself at some stage and then record yourself after a certain amount of time and rate how you grew. If you grew a little bit, then you grew a little bit. Don't qualify it with a subjective term. Just be objective with it. Also, that being said, be okay with any progress is progress. So if 5 minutes ago you couldn't do a pianissimo roll and 5 minutes later you can do it better, that's progress. Acknowledge the progress. I don't know how else to acknowledge all progress. Because if you don't acknowledge the small things, another corny statement, if you don't acknowledge the small things, when the big things happen, you won't really take them seriously. They'll be like, oh, finally, I got a big change. Like, that took forever. Why couldn't I get that much, but then you forget that all those little changes led up to that big change. So just, Ian Ding told me, respect the process. Just, any progress is progress. Denzel Washington said that in a commencement speech. Any progress is progress, and you have to acknowledge that. Okay. How do you keep track to make sure your practice time is impactful? That's another loaded question. How do I keep track? Well, I would also recommend writing down, or if it doesn't work, writing down, just taking stock of what you did and did it help in some way. There's some crazy stuff I used to do that didn't necessarily have a big impact in my playing, so I stopped doing it. If you notice something's not working, then just stop doing it. If you notice something really works, exploit it until it doesn't work anymore. Yeah, so I try to keep track mentally. I don't necessarily write a lot of things down because I don't work that way. I've done a lot of Night Am, I love you. My sister Amber. So yeah, I don't necessarily write things down, just because I work more in my head. There are certain things I do write down, like sometimes I write a lot of things down, but I try to keep track of like what I did, if it worked out, and if it worked out, I just exploit it until it stops working. And again, that depends on the person. It depends on what you're doing, what you're trying to achieve. If you notice certain things, like what I used to do, I tried to kind of multitask. So if I notice certain things work for multiple things, I always do that thing. For instance, if I'm always doing stick control to a metronome, then not only am I working on my technique, but I'm also working on time and rhythmic accuracy. So anything I do with a metronome to work on both time and rhythmic accuracy. And so that's kind of a multitask thing. And some people might dig that. Some people might not be aware of that. They just kind of focus on the technique and don't think about the time or be aware of it. But I find that multitasking is really helpful to save time and be more efficient in practice. So yeah, it just depends on what you need and what you need to accomplish, and if the things you try work. And if they don't, be okay with it not working. It's not that, and when it doesn't work, you haven't wasted time. That's the other thing. If you try something and it doesn't work, you did not waste time. You learned something. Even though it didn't work, you learned that it didn't work. And if it didn't work, it might actually lead you to a new practice routine. Like there was something I did. Um, man, I tried. I tried learning to get my left hand better. I tried learning tabla. No, not tabla. I tried learning banjo, not banjo, mandolin. So to get my left hand stronger, I spent like $50 on this cheap mandolin, and I tried learning scales to get my left hand stronger, and like it was like whatever. I tried so many things like that, and it didn't work. So I spent time and money, but like that time wasn't wasted in any respect. So it's being okay with that. Yeah. Jason, hey Jason. What time is it? Whoa, 11:30. Yeah, no problem, Edwin. I'm just talking. Did I miss anybody? I think that was everybody. I think. Right? I hope it was everybody. Sweet. Cool. Um, just making sure I didn't miss anybody's questions. At least I had a plan. Oh yeah, yeah. At least I had a. It's good to plan, even if it doesn't work. It's good to have a general sense of what's going on, and being okay. It's good to plan and being okay that the plan changes because a lot of things will change. I used to be about 50 pounds heavier, and honestly, that made playing cymbals a lot easier because I had more weight. And then going to this audition, 20-inch cymbals felt really different because I don't have the weight I used to have to throw it with. So I had to relearn how to hold cymbals. I literally relearned. Thanks, Mark. Um, yeah, I had to relearn how to play cymbals because of how my body changed. So I changed my 2 week, literally a week before the audition. Okay, I'll talk to you soon. A week before the audition, I changed my cymbal grip completely. It was really hard. Am I keeping the hair? Yeah, I'm gonna keep the hair. I'm getting it done tomorrow. Actually, I have a day off. Um, gonna get it trimmed. It's finally the center's growing. Okay. Yeah. So I changed my cymbal grip because I lost a lot of weight. Didn't have the muscle power I used to have because of obvious things. I didn't want to. I had to rest and take care of my left arm, um, which is finally better because I actually did the thing I was supposed to do. And yeah, I just had to relearn a lot of things. So it's good to have a plan going in to at least set yourself up for success. And the plan can change, so be okay with that. Um, if you're rigid with that, then it's not. You're just gonna keep hitting walls. You have to be fluid enough to like meet it, and you know, just yeah, you just have to be fluid. Bruce Lee again, be water, my friend. Just you got to be fluid with it, or else you just keep hitting walls, and you can never adapt and change to where you grow. A tree, like the same thing you see it in nature. A tree won't. A, a tree tries to go to the sunlight, and it doesn't it has no eyes, so it can't see, so it just feels its way around, and it takes it time to grow around what it needs to reach the sunlight. So it takes time. Um, I love parables, parables, parabolas. Yeah, so I highly recommend that. Planning and having that flexibility. I know it's late. Anybody have another question? Go. I know it's late. It's late over here at least. Um, but I'll keep talking until someone tells me to stop talking. Um, but yeah, I guess Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's gonna be like a thing. I like I love sharing information just because it was given to me freely. So I don't care how many people watch. If like it's only 5 people here, like that's fine. Like it doesn't have to be a lot of people. Whoever's here, that's who it's for. So that's what I'm about. I'm not about the whole like let me get 1 million people to watch me talk about how to throw a stick. I just want whoever's here, that's fine. Whoever asks me, I answer as best I can. Just because it was given to me freely, so I just want to pay it forward, as people say. Um, because if it wasn't given to me freely, I wouldn't be here. And there's so many people like I have to thank a bunch of people when I get home, because it's just an amazing experience. Um, I still really haven't realized the whole I want a job thing, just because again I'm just kind of living and seeing what happens, just being okay with what comes and being ready for what comes. Um, so yeah, I have a ton of questions. Oh, okay, well, okay, that's fine. Like I'm okay answering. So yeah, um, yeah. Also, Tuesday's a weird day anyway. So like, what? Um, I think I have time tomorrow too. I might do this tomorrow too. But whatever. Um, with auditions you advanced in, what were the aspects of your playing that you think helped you advance? Let's see. Um, aspects of my playing that I think helped me advance. Um, what I realized, a thing I really thought of, just scrolling things. The thing I really thought of when I first advanced, was I changed the way I thought of auditions. Simply, and I wrote another blog I wrote. I just simply thought of auditions as me playing pieces the way I think they go. And the only standard I had for myself was, am I expressing my thoughts and my phrases clearly and blatantly? That's one. So musicality. Second thing is it clear to the listener what I'm doing? So, and that's the second thing. And three, is it what's on the page? If Eric Milstein, my other teacher, he said the person listening should be able to transcribe what you played verbatim. If you did a crescendo, they should be able to hear it. If you did an accent, they should be able to hear it. Rhythmic integrity, they should be able to hear it. Like they should be able to just write it out. So aspects, and this is also on my website. There are 10. I wrote 10 things. 10 things you can do to get yourself advanced. Blah. Um, I would say just make sure you play what's on the page accurately, in tune, in time, um, accurately, the correct tone quality, correct character, all that stuff. That has to be number one. And my thumb's weird. Number two, um, just make sure it's all musical and musically characteristically accurate and appropriate. Those 2 things. That'll get you advanced. If it's accurate, musical, and appropriate, 9 times out of 10. Night, mom. 9 times out of 10, it'll probably get you advanced. Um, Drum Mojo. How do I write that? Can I write those? Can I write stuff? I haven't done this before. I'm writing a comment. Okay, drummojo.com. Boom. Sweet. Okay. Yeah. Sweet. Um, yeah. That is the website. Yeah. So, those are the things. Those 3 things. Um, and obviously you have to do it right the first time. Um, and like, it, it, and that's what you have control over. You don't have control over whether or not they like your phrasing, whether or not they like your sound choice, your quality of sound, um, what you used, like all that stuff you can't control. What you can control is the musicality, the accuracy, and the presentation. So do those three things. If you solidify those three things, you can do it accurately 10 times out of 10. Probably you'll advance. I did that in Atlanta, as far as I know. That's what I did in Atlanta, and I did not advance. Um, so take it or leave it. Um, Somebody told me in Pittsburgh, you're selling soap, and if the first person doesn't like the soap you're selling, go to the next door. Were you surprised at any of the times you advanced? Yes. National Symphony. I played Porgy. I missed two notes in Porgy, and I missed one note in Sorcerers. Yeah. And I advanced. I was like, this is National Symphony. They're probably looking for perfection, blah, blah, blah. They liked my phrasing and probably my sound concept. So I advanced to the semis. I was very surprised. My first professional audition, I got a split vote. It was Detroit, actually, the Detroit principal audition, Joe Becker's job. I was a sophomore. I got a split vote. So I was in the room. I was in the waiting room, and um, was waiting with everybody. And then, literally, the personnel manager came in, and they were like, "The panel would like to hear number 7 again." And I was like, "Wait, I'm number 7. Like, why do they want to hear me again? Like, did I really do that good?" Like, and then you get all into your own head and all that stuff. So I didn't advance, but if I had the mental perception to clear that out, I probably would have advanced. Maybe got into the finals. I probably wouldn't have won, but like, I probably would have at least gotten the semis. But yeah, there's some surprises for sure. Sometimes you do stuff that you did not expect to happen, and then you still advance. Calgary, I did a bunch of weird stuff. Um, the last round we just did, um, I played Scheherazade for the last excerpt, and my doubles did not come out at all. I was playing buzzes and all sorts of weird stuff, but I phrased the crap out of it. He told me to do a lot of changes. I did as much blatant changes as I could with all the bad and I played in time and all that stuff, and I won. So there's a lot of surprises. Okay, who says what? Hey, Singapore. Nice. Woo. Yeah, so there was a couple things that I definitely was not expecting. Um, yeah, so I'm writing a text message. Okay. For percussion, hey TJ. Well, we went to school together. TJ, for percussion, do you find yourself doing the same excerpts for auditions over and over again? Um, Essentially, yes. Yeah. Lists are usually pretty standard. Um, you every once in a while, like this last audition with St. Louis that Alan Stewart just won. There were 2 or 3 new excerpts. So, yeah. How do you keep the excerpts feeling fresh after playing the pieces so many times? This is the other thing. Keeping things fresh, because we do the same thing over and over. Repetition is needed, but it's also like a killer. So it's kind of the same thing with motivation. You have to find ways to make things new. If that's a new practice, um, if that's a new practice strategy, if that's a new recording you find, if it's a new phrasing, and then some days I just stop practice. Like with this last audition, I stopped. I did not practice for the last two rounds. Really, I just ran through excerpts for like 20 minutes and I just stopped. I just played stick control, scales, ran through the excerpts, stopped. Just to make sure I kept it fresh. So there is a way of there is a necessity to limit yourself to how much you repeat things, or else they start becoming monotonous, and then they start losing their freshness and all that stuff. So yeah, I would highly suggest limiting yourself. Once you start feeling excerpts are getting monotonous, don't practice it. Leave it alone for a while, and then come back, and then it'll feel fresh. Um, or just always expanding your variety with that. Um, yeah. Good musicality. Let's see. Yeah, less is more for sure. Specifically for that, because there's a lot of repetition, that because you start obsessing over the details so much that you start like it that repetition just kind of kills the mood. So, be okay with leaving something alone for a while. And that's another thing. You got to be okay with leaving something alone for a while. If it's not working, stop. Don't force it. Just leave it alone. Just let it go. Again, let it go. Let it go. Um, I'm sorry. Yeah, so, yeah, that's one way I would keep it fresh. A lot of variety, leaving things alone for a while, um, and even changing it's not as possible for other instrumentalists, but finding different things, I don't even know, different rooms to play in, different people to play for us, for percussionists, it's different sticks, different instruments. For somebody else, it could be a different breathing pattern, or string crossing, or blah blah fingerings, bowing, that kind of thing. um, and once you find something that sticks, if it's always going to stay the same, then you really don't have to touch it as much. Um, as far as like bowings, fingering, stickings for us, um, phrasing. So you really shouldn't overdo anything at all. Be okay with leaving it alone, and that'll keep it fresh. Um, yeah, 6, 5, and then there were 5. Um, yeah, I think I got all the questions. Who's still here? Who's here? Oops. +3. Jordan, Cameron. Cool. I can't see everybody. This is weird. I wish I could see everybody. Okay, well. Gabe! Hey, Gabe. Gabe's a really good friend of mine. I am very honored to call Gabe my friend. Very honored to call Gabe my friend. Um, yeah. Actually, speaking of Gabe, I have to give a lot of credit from two summers ago. Including this summer. Um, for those of you who were here when we were talking about this, being okay with who you are and realizing who you are. Like, I really owe a lot to Gabe for being a really excellent example to me about being okay with who you are and being okay with going through the process of getting to that and making that a reality. So, I am very honored of Gabe. So, thank you, Gabe, for teaching me that and being an example to me for that. Um, Also, that goes beyond saying, just be very conscious of who you learn from and who has an impact on you, because you never know what they like. You never know, you know. You just don't. There was somebody. I remember when the video came out, people were telling me about so many things they were going through and like how inspirational the video was. Like you just don't know who you affect. So you shouldn't be like you shouldn't be doing stuff to expect a return like that, especially with something so meaningful. So just, live your life and try to be available to help people. If it's blatantly or not as an after, but you know what I'm trying to say. All right, I got 5 minutes. I'm gonna go to bed at midnight because I gotta go to the orchestra tomorrow, Pittsburgh. Does anybody have a question that I can answer in 5 minutes? If not, that's cool because I'm gonna go to bed. Let's see who's here so I can at least say hi. It's Gabe. Hi, Gabe. Patricio. Hi. Cameron. Hi. And there's 4 more people that I can't see. Jordan. Hello. 3 more people. I still can't see. I'm clicking the thing and it won't show me. Oh well. Now TJ. TJ's watching. Gabe's watching. Dad's watching. And I think Samarasan, I think. Cool. Oh yeah, no problem, Jeremy. Anytime. I love sharing information. Yeah. So, okay. It's 11:56 here. So, I'm gonna head to bed. Thank you. I'm really happy. I'm happy to start working, and I feel like with this new position, like I mean, nothing's really gonna change. I'm just gonna keep, I'm just gonna keep doing what I do, helping people, teaching, spreading love and happiness, all that stuff. Like nothing's gonna change. I'm still gonna practice. I'm still gonna do what I do. You know, it's just another event. It's just another medium for me to do what I love. So I'm gonna use the status to help as many people as I can, and that's what I've always wanted to do, and that's what I want to keep doing. So if it's only 5 people on a live stream, that's cool. Like I'm doing what I want. I'm not trying to like be some big thing, you know. Because what is that? There's no meaning to that. You just help somebody. Like I kid you not. And I'm not I'm not trying to blow my own horn or anything, but like the first thing I did after I won was I so I was in a very nice hotel, and the first night I went to a little restaurant. And on my way there was a bridge, and there were 2 homeless guys on my way there, and I didn't have any cash. I didn't have any disposable income. I only had enough to eat and do one taxi ride to the airport and back. And so I was getting paid that week for playing, but it wasn't until like at least 3 days after the audition. So I wasn't getting paid until Wednesday. So I got there Sunday and Monday. So after I won, I had $40 in Canadian, and that was my last. I had 60 in total. I took 40 and gave 20 to each of the guys, because something I always, I'm getting all emotional. Something I always wanted to keep myself aware of is that I've been in situations where I didn't have enough to do certain things, and I just didn't want to be a burden on people, so I would just kind of keep it to myself and just kind of roll with the punches in a lot of different cases. So there have been times I didn't eat because I was trying to save up for a pair of sticks or something because I needed for an audition. Um, Case in point, for the Pittsburgh auditions for fellowship, I spent a lot of money. I spent less money on busing because it was less money to save for other things, for traveling to Calgary, for instance. Um, and so I always wanted it to be within my financial power to bless someone in need in a very significant way. And before I even got a paycheck, I wanted to be able to give somebody something because of how happy I was and how just to so not signify that I would be using that status exactly the way I would have used it if I had it before. Um, so, like, you do what you do and you try to help somebody. And you you never know, like, you don't do it with the intent of getting something back. Because, like, I didn't care about the $40. Like, those guys needed some food. And I knew it would make them really happy to get some random dude $20. Like, it's not counterfeit. Like, you can't counterfeit Canadian money. It's kind of hard. You have you seen Canadian money? It's hard to counterfeit that. So it's a little 20. But like, who? But then again, who else is gonna do that for somebody? Like, it's me. you know, like, of course it's gonna be me. Like, it had to be me. And some things and some people can't be touched by anybody else but you, and because you have exactly what they need at that time. So I don't know, I don't want to get preachy or anything, but like, that's the first thing I did. I won the job and gave two people $40 that I didn't have. Yeah, that's some powerful stuff, man. All right, now I'm all crying. Oh, Andy said, Andy, man, I love you, man. Yeah, yeah, man, I love you, Andy. Change, and music is so what we do as artists and what we do as human beings, not just artists, but as human beings, is extremely important to society and to the world. It doesn't, and it really, as much crap is going on right now, it really doesn't matter what's going on as a whole if one person is helped. Like, we have to keep reaching so many people. You have to do like one person at a time. Reach who you can reach, and that's what matters. So, okay, I'm going to bed. All right, peeps. Um, thanks so much for watching. Um, and I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Thanks for watching. I might do this tomorrow. I might not, honestly, because 2 days in a row. But I will probably start trying to do this more because, who knows what people need. And I'm really bad at writing things, and I do better with talking. And I'm not really even good at that. So, yeah. Okay. Hi, Rumi. Yeah, I love a hug. Okay. Okay. All right, peeps. Good night. If anyone ever needs anything, just text me or email me, like, anytime. All right. Bye bye.